in an entrepreneurial journey, like it is hard, and there are going to be a lot of times when you want to just hang up your hat and and go home. And that is, I think, truly the differentiating factor for who becomes successful and gets their product, to scale.
Hi, and welcome to another Conversations on Retail podcast. I'm Ian McColl. I'm a professor at the California College of the Arts in San Francisco and founder of icm.studio, where I practice merchant-centric design. Today, I'm very excited to have Christine Peck and Meghan DeRoma, two entrepreneurs who have gone through this incredible process of creating wonderful games and experiences for kids and putting them out there in retail. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing all of the lessons you guys have learned along the way in doing that, both the good ones and the challenges that you've faced. So welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would each of you, I guess, give a little bit of an intro, maybe especially before you kind of got into Silly Street and creating that whole enterprise? What sort of what was your background at that point, and what brought you to do something like this? So, Christine, would you like to go first?
Sure. So up until that point in my life, I had focused on, I started my career in advertising, and then I went into CPG and retail after I had gone to business school, where I focused on sustainability and marketing. And right before I was starting Silly Street with Meghan, I had been at Target, and then I had been in consumer packaged goods for Mrs. Meyer's, Clean Day, and Caldrea Essential Collection, those sorts of products. And I enjoyed all of them, right? Like the focus was largely on consumer, on marketing, on interacting with consumers and bringing something better into the market. That had always been sort of my focus, at least post-graduate school. And for me, SC Johnson had recently purchased and acquired my company and had moved the headquarters from Minnesota into Wisconsin. And so I had that opportunity, but wanted to stay put in Minnesota. And Meghan and I, for years, had been chatting about, doing something on our own. And so that was one part of it. There was a really opportunistic moment in time. And then also, and Meghan will touch on this as well, we had little kids, and our children are really close in age. And so they were moving from this play-based preschool into mainstream public school. And we were really hyper-focused on them, developing a love for learning. I would say that we both share an intense love for learning, and we wanted to make sure that that was going to be passed along to our kids and help them develop with that. And then at the same time, we were playing with them. We're hands-on moms, and a lot of the products out there we were pretty disappointed with and didn't enjoy ourselves. So it sort of made sense for us to just go, go fix the problem ourselves.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Thank you. Meghan?
I'll just add a little to this. So I have also a background in advertising and marketing. I spent a lot of my career in agencies in the creative department. I came from an art direction background. And, the evolution of advertising is such that, along the way, now people create products or experiences or, there's a whole range of things that kind of apply as advertising now. So to make a product from that background didn't seem like a far-fetched idea. And Christine and I are also kind of voracious readers, and had been, while we had these young kids in kindergarten, just entering, like academic school age. we're reading books like about grit and about the growth mindset and all that stuff. There's all this like every generation of baby has the literature that comes out at that time that's affecting how the children are raised. And so we one thing that we're good at is taking in that information because we care so much about it for our own kids, and then distilling it into like something that's actually fun. So that was another facet of how Silly Street came to life.
Yeah. And Meghan, you've got a background in art and graphic design as well. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
Okay. So that's
yeah. Like I said, I came from like an art direction background, but I have always had done my own side, as many of the art directors did, on the side hustle in graphic design. I went to school for sculpture and photography, so had both the sort of 2D and 3D experience, and yeah, I've worked on lots of brands, lots of, like actual logo and brand guideline and that kind of design. And also, the marketing aspect of design, which, coming up with ideas, commercials, social experiments around different products.
So between the two of you, you had these complementary skill sets and this friendship and this shared love of raising your children, and seemed like the perfect brew for being entrepreneurs and putting something together. So that's great. How did you guys are there with the kids, and probably it sounds like this opportunity, like you were both looking for something to kind of do and perhaps do together. What was the first creative spark for the game? Like, how did that first get made? Did you start making prototypes? Did you talk it out first, storyboard it, talk to a lot of different people? What was the genesis of it?
We might have different answers. I'm not totally sure. Well, the same answer on this one. Go
ahead. You go first.
I have one little thing. I remember. So we had a ton of Richard Scarry books, and there was this one very, very, very simple game that I would watch my kids play with my mom, and I thought, like, this is wild to me that they enjoy this game, but it was very sweet, right? And very basic, where you like moved along this path. And then I'll say, so that was just like one, like, oh, little tiny, like, boop, right? Little tiny light. And then, we also had all those games like Chutes and Ladders and Candyland, and it just makes you I'm filtering myself, makes you not really want to play with your kids because they're not super engaging. And then we also have 4 boys. And at the time, really 2 of them were very, 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 very active, right? And like they can't sit and they're fumbling around. And it's like, okay, so let's distill all of this with all the things, that Angela Duckworth is teaching us about, character building. And so it was all of those sort of put together. And then Meg and I like riffing, right? Like we can, talk about all the different magic things that we have in Silly Street. But a lot of it is just us sort of like riffing and playing with our kids and being like, let's put these on cards. This is what's fun. And then, obviously getting a little bit more methodical with like the specific traits and things that we want to help them build, and then getting more methodical around that. But I would say that was sort of the start, for at least from my perspective.
Mm-hmm. It was sort of a honing in, like, you see this, Candyland, like just doesn't take a lot, like a turtle could play Candyland and figure it out, and these are like the most formative moments of, your child's sort of brain development, which is something that you read about and stress about as a mother, especially around that kindergarten age, because kindergarten is so important, on paper. And actually it is. I think observation of our own children was such a big part of what went into it, and what seems fun, and what they're trying to do, or, like learning about, or trying to restrain themselves from doing, And so it sort of evolved. And what happened was we put together a prototype board. We laminated it, we made this huge thing that like folded up and then, literally like printed, paper cards at Kinko's and cut it out and put them on cardboard and sent them. We had one prototype, right? Didn't we have one?
Yeah.
And so we
I think I still have it.
Yeah. We sent it around to all of our friends because coincidentally, side note, I had like 8 roommates from college who all had babies at the same time. So like everybody had a kindergartner at the same time. So it was a little bit easy. Like we had an incubator class right there.
Yeah, right there.
And we sent it around. We made them sign the back of it once they played the game and give us feedback. And so yeah, that's in the Silly Street archives now, that prototype. But the feedback was great. And, people found it engaging and like the parents actually were into playing it with their kids because funny stuff would happen. It worked on many levels, but I think we gradually got even more and more creative with the cards and the actions. And like you'd learn something from some expert about crossing midlines. So crossing midlines is really important for kids at that age because is in terms of brain development. I can't even totally speak to why that is important at this point, but it was important. And so then we put in a card that was like, you're a starfish and you have to like touch your leg or, things like that. So you're taking in this information, learning something. And then that is the spark of an idea for like, how can we creatively wrap that and make it into like a funny activity where a kid doesn't feel like they're being taught something, they're just like being silly.
Yeah. Yeah. Those developmental hallmarks that you're bringing up of kids at different ages.
Yeah.
I love that you bring up Candyland and Chutes and Ladders. I'm reading a book right now. It's called Linchpin. And anyway, there was a comment in there in his premises that there's a lot of that it's sort of we're trained to be in a factory. Like we're sort of training people to just repeat the same thing. And then in school, teach and then, take the test and do it. And it's like, and what does Candyland and Chutes and Ladders teach you? It's like roll a dice or something, and then move and then hope that the other person doesn't get the same roll, right? There's absolutely no creativity. There's no agency for the children. So the fact that you guys spotted that, I think is meaningful that those experiences, they're kind of, it's good engagement with a child between a parent and a child potentially, or between children, but it's not particularly good learning. So, I'm going to come back to the game in a second if I could. So there's this, one of the slides you shared with me was this, as we sort of get into more businessy stuff, right? So here's this white space that you identified. I'm guessing this probably came after the first creative spark. It was like, okay, well, if this is a thing, how big is this addressable market? Do you guys want to talk to this a little bit?
Sure. So especially at that time, that was like STEM was huge in 2016. That's when we had developed Silly Street. And there was a ton of money going into that. When you were going into stores, it was sort of categorized as almost like dramatic play and STEM, right? And as a mom, really also looking at that market, it was, there were elements that were being left out of human and child development. And so social emotional learning was sort of like packaged up as something that happens in schools or with counselors, but not something for every human to be working on and developing, right? Like a lot of those skills would just be parent to child, how you're being raised, but not something that was really considered. And so as we analyzed that market and looked at, okay, there's all of these hard skills now we're going after and want to teach our kids. But what about all the soft skills that lead to success in the hard skills? Like, why aren't we being more considerate and focused on that? And then also, why would we look at the social emotional learning toys? No one's attracted to those. Those don't look fun. They're and they're mostly marketed to teachers versus children. And that's a really different target as it pertains to creating a brand and communicating properly to the person who is ultimately going to be attracted to those products. And then lastly, I'll say, it was our intention to always create something that was beautiful and made for mass. It was important that this be something that every child have access to. So from the beginning, we knew we wanted to make this be sold at Target, at Amazon, at Walmart, those types of places, but wanted to also, thank goodness for Meghan, have it look incredibly beautiful and be able to help sort of lead the social emotional learning evolution, and really start it, because at that time there were very few products on the line. Peaceable Kingdom was there, Mindware's done some, and they're really big now too. But anyways, that was sort of our thoughts on why there was so much white space and why it needed to be capitalized on.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, what should we jump into the game here? I'll share again. Meghan, maybe you want to sort of walk the audience through sort of the way the game works a little bit and how it goes together and what discoveries you made along the way. I love that you got all the feedback from your friends and had them sign it. I love that authenticity there. So, what did you sort of learn along the way, and how did you sort of end up at this version of it?
Sure. So many different touch points and experiences kind of got baked into the game. But I think Christine mentioned earlier that we had kids. They were boys. They were rambunctious. Hard to make them sit down. They lean across the table and knock over, those little, Candyland movers, were constantly knocked over. So that was one of the considerations we took into the design. And we wanted to make this something that because movement was a big part of it, the consideration of where the game would be even played was very important. And so also, when you're making a product, finance is important, and size and box considerations. And there's so many things that go into what the final product becomes. And we had this idea to make it really big and make it on the floor so that kids could move around it. It wasn't like this small precious thing that you tip one corner, then the whole board goes, haywire. And in order to accomplish that, we came up with the idea to make it into a puzzle. So the board itself is an 8-piece puzzle. And sits on the floor. The movers are wooden. They are non-chokeable, little wooden movers. So they're cute. It feels, the materials were a consideration for us as well, because we care about the environment, and we, wanted to use FSC certified wood in the little movers, and recycled cardboard. So all of these things kind of, have a place at the table in the creation of the game. And then thinking about how parents, might use this or might extend the game. The idea of the little, if you look at number 2, the little bag came to be. So you can technically play this game because these cards are mostly agnostic of the board, except for one instance, which I'll mention in a second. All that stuff can be neatly stored in that cute little bag, and can also be taken into the car, for a little travel sort of version of the game. And so the other part of this is I am a huge Where's Waldo fan. And Christine mentioned Richard Scarry, and those kinds of little detailed things, that search and find kind of activity is so fun, and also creates just kind of this colorful chaos that became the aesthetic for Silly Street. So we wanted the board to be part of the interactive component, and then the cards are as well. And so the cards give you activities to do. And one of the activities might be finding something on the board. And so rather than do a find a red thing or find something that's like, sort of more objective, we brought in the emotional side of things. And so the card would say, find something funny. And there's a whole bunch of different weird things in here. There's like aliens and, like animals doing silly things or, in places that they shouldn't be and so it allows a kid to process, like what's funny to me and what do I see on here that, that can check that box. And there's so many more.
Yeah, exactly. Right. This is years of conversation put into
totally
one thing. Well, that's great. And I love the functional chaos that you talked about. That's sort of like the brand which is perfect. And at that age, it's great. And I think the mark and everything reflects that really nicely. Okay. So you hone in on the game and you get that where you want it. To go. What happens next? Do you fly over to China or find a printer? Do you get into manufacturing and start going around setting up meetings with merchants, or did you go around looking for partners? How did that all go next?
We had our eye on target from the beginning.
Yeah.
Again, I'm having this dialogue with myself in my head. So we had our eye on them for better or worse, right? And a couple reasons. One, because of that access to so many people, and two, because they have such a considerate eye for design. So we thought that they would also appreciate that. So we decided that we were going to manufacture ourselves through many conversations that we had through other, friends of mine at Target or who had sold into Target. We had decided to partner with another company that sort of helps you do the fulfillment, because we didn't have EDI, which is their like electronic database. And so that was the only way for us really to do it without either raising a bunch of money or licensing. At the time, we weren't really thinking of licensing quite yet. So we decided like, okay, hey, people produce things every day. We're smart people. We can find somebody to make this thing. The internet was not as friendly as it was today in terms of finding overseas manufacturing partners. But we did find a person, and we're actually still in touch with them. And we ended up producing a first prototype product with them. And we decided, okay, we're going to take this, we're going to pitch it to Target. Target was super interested in it. They also, Kickstarter was very big at that moment in time as well. And was pretty much a marketing vehicle, not only for the founders, but also for the retailers. Yeah. And so we, actually got pushed to do a Kickstarter. We were back and forth on whether we were going to self-fund it or not. We decided to do the Kickstarter, which Meghan can share more of that experience of what that was like too, because she produced our adorable video and everything that went along with it. And then we brought in a container of that. And we did that while also simultaneously getting awarded the Target business for the following fall. So we were able to do that with some confidence, right? Because a half a container or a container is a lot of product when you don't have a customer yet. So we felt really, really good about having the customer of Target being our launch customer. But through that Kickstarter, we had outreach from multiple toy companies asking to license. And that was a really big change of direction for us because that wasn't something that we necessarily intended to do from the onset. But as we looked at what we felt we want, like the areas we wanted to spend the most time, which was on product development, creation, doing the elements of building a brand that we felt really confident, and then leaving the sales and manufacturing execution to a partner, we thought this might be a really cool opportunity for us. And it will change sort of the trajectory as to what we need to do. We don't need to go out and fundraise because now we have a partner. And as long as that partner is aligned with our vision, then we can create a really beautiful, wonderful, impactful line of toys, especially since we had already gotten into Target ourselves. So that gave us more support to sort of lean into more product development at a quicker pace than we would have been able to do on our own.
So that was a really powerful moment then, is that you've landed on the product, you've sort of got sourcing going, you're doing a Kickstarter campaign, which, having done some of those, that's a tremendous amount of work. And I did that fund. Was it a successful Kickstarter campaign, which is not trivial these days, especially there's a lot of noise in that platform. And so you're doing all that. Then you have to fulfill for all of them in Kickstarter, right? Because that's the thing. And there's a million questions and taxes and different countries and how do I ship and all these, like, the complexity of that platform is not trivial. And at the same time, you're finding through your contacts, you're finding the merchants to speak with at Target and other retailers as well. And then it's like, well, we're going to change our business model and, think about licensing with a partner. It's like, wow, that's like, what a moment that must have been.
Yeah, it was it was a lot, and also quite exciting. Like, those 6 months,
it's working, right?
We're
right.
Like,
yay,
whoa,
we're right.
Look at this.
And everybody is, so they're buying the story that you're selling, like everything, all this work you'd put in, all your instincts, everything, the design of the whole thing. It's like, yeah, we're right. This is this is cool. Everybody's beating a path to our door to do this. So that's pretty cool. That's super exciting. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, that sort of a moment of success like that relatively early on doesn't come. Right. It's more kind of grinding it out over the years and trying to get that meeting and ups and downs and stuff. And I'm sure there were some downs along even at that moment. So that's great. So what happens next? What's the next moment like? And how did you, there's a lot of decisions to make here too. How do you make those decisions?
The decision to license or not license, that was like, we had to have a, real realistic conversation with ourselves on the types of things that we wanted to do. And then luckily, the 2 companies that came to us were both really cool and great and had awesome reputations. It's interesting, looking back, would we have made the same decision? Probably, there's been a lot of consolidation in the game industry. One of them, I think one of them got acquired or shut down, and then the other one has grown tremendously. And for us, like when we made that initial decision, it was also like, it changed our perspective on manufacturing too, right? So we went with Buffalo Games. Buffalo Games was a family-run business in the United States. They had their own manufacturing facility in Buffalo, New York. Like, how great is that? We went and had meetings with them. We had the same vision for growing out preschool, and how it was a huge opportunity and something missing from their portfolio. They believed in the design and the just ability to make this a really big market. And then we got to focus and I would say make better decisions on having our game more sustainably made. Our carbon footprint on this sucker went down tremendously, right? Yep. Also, just like manufacturing timelines and all of those other things that are so challenging, right? When we brought in our first container, it came from China, then, went on a boat, got out in Savannah, and then got on some trains and then made it, so like it was a really big deal. And so all of those those little decisions impacted the main decision for partnership. And then, of course, because they have a whole entire team, then that helped the slight nuance where we had changed from working with PSI, which is the company that helps smaller companies sell into Target, to transitioning to Buffalo. But I will say this, just like as a, public service announcement, we had made that change without actually consulting the buyer at the time. And had we made that change and not had it been with such a high quality company that was one of Target's preferred customers, there's a really good chance that we would have been dropped because of the internal issues that they had to deal with. And so that was something that was just we were a little blindsided, like, we thought it would be fine because it's actually someone even better, right? Someone that you're buying lots and lots of products from. Anyways, so that was...
you were switching the vendor of record, basically.
That's right.
Midstream in a transaction. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
And so that was, don't do that. Don't do that if that's a choice.
Noted.
Yeah.
Noted.
But it ended up being fine. But, the correspondence back and forth there was a little, I was definitely sweating.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to share another slide here and sort of do a quick little interlude of where this brand was going, because I think, and then I want to come back to sort of what happens next, but where the brand is going. So, and maybe Meghan can kind of speak to this, but there was a whole vision of where this brand could go. It wasn't just a single product, which is, anybody will advise you. It's like just selling one product into retail is really not a business model. Like, you need to have sort of a vision and a brand, a point of view. Where does it go from here? How does it grow? So Meghan, would you like to sort of talk about, I think this is probably just a partial list of some of the things that you guys were thinking or executed on.
Yes. So one thing I will say about going with the licensor, aside from a lot of manufacturing help and sustainability, was that we were able to then focus more on creation, on making new things. Like, we always had a huge vision, I think I comped our faces onto Fast Company, with the headline, "The New Disney," at the very beginning, as a vision board exercise.
I love it. It's fun.
So we had big vision for this. And also, I'm going to keep coming back to this. We had such a tremendous passion for the material because we were in real time experiencing the effects of, early reading and the Common Core on, how kids were being raised in public schools. So, so we had, all these different ways that we could address this social emotional sort of deficit in the learning sphere of our kids. So books, because we had started to create characters for all of the and this is one actually a creation side note story. The way that I originally started designing the cards was, it was just a tremendous task, we had all these ideas. It didn't, and it's big and it's open and you don't really have boundaries because you haven't created the brand yet. And so at the time there was a thing on Instagram that was called the 100 Days of Blank. I'm sure so many people have participated in this. And I joined it. And so I did 100 days of silly street characters. And so every day I would design a new character, and it was such a helpful to be in that group of people. But also then I started designing all these characters, which naturally led to the idea we could make a book out of this. We're illustrating all these things. We have all this IP that's accumulating, what else could we do with it? And then, certain ones float to the top. So the lion became the main character of Animal Act. And so there are just, you just don't have a shortage of ideas when you truly care about something.
Yeah.
And so
designing characters and their personalities, I take at the same time, and there's superpowers and all these different things. It's wonderful.
Totally. And also then you walk around the toy aisle because you spend a lot of time there because you're trying to like, you're figuring out who your competitors are and what else is going on there. And yeah, there's a lot of junk out there. And it's easy when like, I mean, I think when people who are creative in the way that and entrepreneurial, like see something bad in the world, they're like, oh, I can fix that,
Yeah.
And so, so we got into dramatic play, which seemed like such an easy path to take. We have, I mean, decks and decks of ideas of different products and for all of the different little toy sections and craft and on and on and on. And then the app was something that was just like a fun way that we could extend the board game. So everyone was making an app at the time as well. Like there were, this is honestly like the first generation of kids that were on screens, and we wanted them to not be on screens, but they were, and there was, there's that area, that cloudy area in there that that tension. And so as with our problem solving in the board game area, we wanted people to be active and like use the screen, but like be in the real world. So that was the facet that brought the app into real life. We could extend the gameplay of the board with card packs on the app, and then you could play it with a game board, or you could play it without, just like you could with a little bag of cards, in the car. So, yeah, it's kind of like the universe of Silly Street just kept growing and growing and growing. And we had the creative space to explore that because we had people who had taken over the manufacturing and, the target liaisoning.
Yeah. So you've got this universe of new ideas out there. You've got so it's definitely can be fleshed out as a compelling brand in the social emotional space. And then you've kind of won the lottery in some ways, and you've done everything right. And here you've got the partner, and so capital's not an issue. Sales relationship, EDI, all of that. You can just sort of get back to the creativity, which is that creative spark that probably brought you guys to this to begin with, right? It wasn't sort of grinding out sort of click through percentages and market, doing all the nitty gritty. So you've got all this going. It's great. So what happened? There's Buffalo Games, which is a really well known and well respected. You've got the sell in going. You're transitioning into the store and the sell through. So what happens next in this story?
Well, we sat down with Buffalo Games and made a full line of products that included Animal Act, which ended up being produced and sold, and as well as 3 other games because we wanted to at least have a full shelf. Simultaneously, we looked at products within activity and craft and started thinking, okay, what other licensors can we bring to the table that will help us extend our brand, right? Thinking of brands like Melissa and Doug, for instance. Melissa and Doug have been around for a long time. They make really nice toys. They focus a lot on dramatic play because that's one of the key play areas for little kids. And they have a pretty substantial section of the store. So we were thinking, okay, how can we naturally go into these other categories of the store and bring that social emotional character development aspect to it? Because it seems, again, like it's very low hanging fruit to make things a little bit better, more open-ended and help support true creativity versus regurgitation of design. And so we went to Mindware and we pitched them, and they licensed one of our products. We co-developed it with them, and it was a small activity toy. That one was not distributed in Target, but was distributed through their catalog. And we started to just build out who our network of possible licensors would be. We went to Toy Fair. A lot of it was like business development type of work, right? Just constant outreach, get to know us, pitching our brand, seeing where that might take us. Because as Meghan said, we had no shortage of ideas because it's something that wasn't infiltrating really any aspect of the toy aisle. So like when we talked about plush, for instance, it wasn't just taking the characters and turning them into something that you could love and snuggle. It had a deeper element, which I'm not sharing because you never know, that toy might come out because we love it. So that's what we started to do next. And that was in maybe 2017 and a half, like 2017, 2018-ish. And then things shifted a little bit.
So Buffalo Games only had the license from you for games.
They had games and puzzles. So they're also
puzzles.
a huge puzzle producer.
Okay.
But they wanted us to go other places too, quite
The
frankly,
universe,
right? Like, and if you look at Star Wars, the Star Wars franchise is, has a million different manufacturers of that, right? And so it's how can you build out a franchise with, specific companies that are targeted to different areas of the toy aisle or have different expertises and that sort of thing.
Okay, so you just teased at it. So we're in 2018 and everything's going great. Something changed. What happened?
Yeah. It was literally like one tiny, tiny little shift that sort of ruined everything. The target buyer changed.
Yes.
And
very familiar with that.
And the target buyers change all the time.
Right.
Target works in a funny way. And Christine had the insider, line to that. And I actually worked on Target in my advertising days. So I saw that happen all the time too. And it changed. And then we fell out of favor based on the new vision of the new buyer.
Wow.
So the old buyer was very into boutique and really wanted to create this, like had a, I don't know, like a parent's heart. I don't think he even had kids, but he valued design and he valued, substance and purpose in products. And then the new one, if you didn't have TV, support behind your game, then you weren't gonna make it. You weren't gonna stay on the shelf.
Wow.
So despite the fact that we had sold more games than we were sort of asked to sell, for an emerging brand.
Great. Yeah. It was great. It was well adopted by the audience, the customer.
Yeah. Yeah. We did 10% more than we were told we had to do.
So we're not pie face, but, which everybody wants that, I assume, as just the financial, for the financial side of that. But yeah, we did great. We sold well and people loved the game. I mean, we still get emails about how people love the game, and the game hasn't been on the shelf for 6 years, so 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And if you didn't have sort of a mini series with your characters in it that's playing on networks, it was just it was no longer interesting.
Yeah.
To that merchant. Wow. That's or
tough. Commercials. It was more commercials than but they wanted this, they wanted, I'm forgetting the name of it. The one with all the dogs where they're firemen,
Oh, Paw Patrol.
Paw Patrol.
Paw Patrol.
Yeah.
And they had when you go and like look at that assortment, there are a lot of sort of crass games, things that are like, silly and get picked up.
Like boogers and the dog will pee on you, hot potato style, like that's a real lot of that. And that's just like, but not the like crass novelty, I would call it.
Mm-hmm. So this whole social, emotional, and dramatic play, even though you proved there was a market for it, this one person in particular was not needed, wanted that bigger mass market, omni-channel. Boy, that's frustrating.
It's really disheartening. It's really disheartening, actually.
Yeah.
From a parental perspective,
Yeah. and Buffalo Games didn't want to put the capital. I mean, it just, the business model doesn't work to put in hundreds of thousands of dollars in media costs and media production to support just one product, right?
Yeah, I mean, for them, they'll keep it in boutique, right? Like boutique has its own, and the independent stores have, they have a real role in the market, but that doesn't mean that like a company of that size, it needs to have mass as well. It just can't live in boutique. It could potentially, if you grew the brand enough to be huge on Amazon, there's a world
That's the other path.
that's the other path. But in addition to that, Buffalo had partners come from Target, and they had co-developed a preschool line for their own brand. And so their need for us, so they had gotten rid of that entire preschool section where like Peaceable Kingdom lived, and other, I would say, boutique quality mass softer skill type of games lived. And so they cleared that out, and then they, I would say, lost the need to partner with us because that was a major uphill battle versus just having Chuckle and Roar out there. But
Right. Chuckle and Roar came in about that time. Yeah. And it was very well done. Like it was a beautiful, I thought they did a great job. And did they take some of the Silly Street notions and bring that into their product development efforts with Chuckle and Roar at all?
Sure, seemed like it.
Say.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Got it.
I don't,
Yeah. You don't want to point fingers, but yeah, it's hard not to be influenced, obviously. So, okay. Well, that's, it's amazing that how entrepreneurship can like come down to a thing like that, what seems like a simple sort of, because those merchants change all the time. And so that's a common thing. And yet that is what are the lessons learned? Like what would you have done differently? Because it really sounds like you did everything right. And it, like, the sell through was there after you got it in, it's the parents are loving it. So, but what do you do differently? Like, what's your advice?
I mean, I would say especially now more than ever, you can create an online business that is not reliant on other people. So I would say one of the things that you lose in a licensing relationship, you gain so many things, certainly, but one of the things you lose is control of your brand. And so hedging even with an online, keeping some of the business to yourself, I think would be a smart way to go in our particular scenario. Obviously there's like wildly different ways that products come to market, but yeah.
So some sort of direct to consumer component that you could have that direct relationship with your consumer and build the business that way. And then you mentioned Amazon earlier, which brings its own challenges, obviously, in doing that, but creating other channels of distribution instead of sort of relying, this licensing deal sort of made you rely on this one distribution channel.
Yeah, and that's a challenge, I'll say, of pretty much anything in consumer packaged goods at all when you're fighting for shelf space. And Meg and I had this discussion this weekend, and also for novelty, right? Until you're like a brand where there may be nostalgia around you, right? You have to fight to stay current and stay relevant. When, I empathize, I've been a buyer before. I empathize with the need to refresh an assortment, to hit your numbers, to do those things while balancing what you may personally like with what sales trends are. And that also comes from the very top in a way where are you being compensated against those goals? So like those are all real things. There's no like one particular, person or element to point at, because it's everybody making decisions that are best for themselves and their business. But as Meg said, that lack of control is really challenging. And so when we look at some of the brands that have launched or had success doing direct to consumer. I do think that if we were to do it again, I wouldn't necessarily say, oh man, we should have kept all the manufacturing and just gone after Target, but like developing a slower direct to consumer brand where it was able to run itself and then take it to a mass retailer. I would say that's probably the best, sort of sequence, because while your company may lose tremendous volume if you get cut from a shelf, you as founders may still have that loyal following that you can continue to nurture and create for. So,
yeah. The challenges with building the specialty market and doing the trade shows and the onesie twosie orders and the payment schedules and all of that stuff, but that builds your long tail, and then you're ready to have some acceleration with a large retailer. It's great, but in theory you're not completely dependent upon them if you can sort of manage inventory and timing and all of that, so you're not completely dependent on them in case that goes away, which things tend to be cyclical, right? So wow, but that's great. We've talked about this before, but I didn't know how this story kind of quote unquote ended, or at least got to this point. So thank you for sharing all that. In wrapping up, I guess, what do you guys have a few kernels of advice that you'd like to kind of give people? One sort of question there also is like, given how everything has ended up today, would you still do it again? Because, I know you guys are close friends still and got through all that and have enjoyed this and this time together. Would you still do it again? And then I guess, what would you tell people who are thinking about going on a similar journey to what you experienced yourselves?
You go ahead,
Meg.
Easy questions in there. Just breeze through it.
I would absolutely do it again. I think and I think we can say this. We actually did. We started another company in 2020. Perfect time to start a company. And so, we have been through a lot. We learned a lot. We certainly, made mistakes, and yet I think, passion is really what drives an entrepreneurial venture. And that is just, if you can harness that passion, and then also realistically know that it's like a marriage, and there's like the fun at the beginning and the newlywed period, and then there is the grind. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that because I don't feel like my marriage is a grind, but in an entrepreneurial journey, like, it is hard, and there are going to be a lot of times when you want to just hang up your hat and go home. And that is, I think, truly the differentiating factor for who becomes successful and gets their product, to scale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would absolutely do it again too. For a lot of reasons. I think, just personally, I get so much satisfaction from the process of having an idea to developing it. And we have gotten so many reviews and comments that are beyond oh, this is so good. This game's so fun. Really impactful to, children with autism, a nonverbal grandma with Alzheimer's, with kids who struggle to talk in front of their class and do this in a counselor's office and then can. So really impactful, wonderful things. And that was the whole point, right? We wanted to create something that benefited our kids and all kids who ever touched it. And so despite us, not becoming this brand yet that everybody knows about, and that is a heritage brand in toys, what we got back from it was great. And I will say the one thing for entrepreneurs and I'm repeating myself a little bit, is really focusing in on what you're good at and want to spend your time doing, because then that allows you to find the partners to do the things that you may not be as good at, or have trouble doing, or takes more energy than gives more energy, and those sorts of things. And that helps, I think, just inform what decisions you can make, because there's so many options, especially these days. There's so many different ways to build a business, to have partners to build a business, and all of those things. So I think having a real look and understanding of yourself is very, very helpful.
Well, what I've really taken away from this conversation is how, this, of course, you're building a business and creating commerce, but what it all stems from authenticity, a true mission. When you were both of you were kind of speaking about the people that you've touched and reached, that feels like your North Star. And it's wonderful. It's not simply to sort of, I think so many people come to entrepreneurship to create something of value. But that it's wonderful to hear your authenticity and how much you care about the experiences that you're creating, not just for kids, but obviously now for other audiences as well, which is great. So we will be following your progress, because something tells me it's not the end of this particular mission. We spoke before. I'm going to share your contact information if people. I think you agreed that if people want to reach out and have any questions for you, they can contact you via email.
Yep, that'd be great.
Great.
Yep. So thank you so much for your time, and can't wait to hear where this goes in the future.
Thank you so much for having us, Ian.
Thanks.